Hi, welcome back. It's Laura at Hyperstamper. I have here a do-over. I call it that because this was a junk journal that had been on my shelf for a couple of weeks. And so I had a few comments that they loved the inside but not the outside. So I put a new cover on it. So it is a very, very old antique book called the International Book of Song. Beautiful spine here. And then what I did is I put another cover from an antique book on top, Chatterbox. And guess what year it's from? 1893. Now it is fabulous. It is super worn, and which means it was super loved. This is an American publication, and the image here is just adorable. And I've added vintage doily down the side, and as always, everything inside is authentic, antique, and vintage ephemera, and I added some new pieces in here. So this book is probably around 75 American, and it is heavy and thick and big, 7 1/4 by 9 3/4. So let's take a look inside before I put it in my Etsy shop, hyperstamper.etsy.com. Let's look at all the authentic antique and vintage ephemera. As always, there's nothing commercial or digital inside whatsoever. So again, you've seen some of these things before. So in here is a piece from the early 1800s. It's a little leather cover of a book that just was disintegrating. So I attached it here with this beautiful gold inlay of this harp and antique paper here for journaling on. Really fun cluster page here. And then this is a 1950s children's book page. It's absolutely sweet as can be. And I love this floral print on the inside page. Beautiful waterfall here from 1913. And this wonderful letter from 1936. Look at that. It is actually a French letter, Monsieur, on its way to the Casbah. How cool is that? So you can actually put this in, take a picture of it in Google and have it translated. It's a really interesting letter. And because it is 1936, you can imagine that time in history. It's really fascinating. So I think whoever gets this journal is going to be incredibly lucky. And that is one of pages. So thank you, Paige, for this. Somebody is going to love it as much as I loved reading that. Got some beautiful antique stamps down here. Look at the great postages. You can't buy a rubber stamp that'll do that as beautifully. Here is the original first page of this book. Look how gorgeous that is. It's called New Music. These two beautiful women here from Victorian days. And that is the original first page of the book as well. And then this is 1901. Gorgeous vintage flashcard here, giant. So I can only put this in my biggest books, so I get really excited when I get to use them. It means I'm doing a giant book. And just a really fun little children's book page there, and I've hidden a journaling spot up here, little golden books piece here. And then over here, I've hidden a little pocket, and I put in this antique transit tag from England, 10p, 10 pence. And then some beautiful doily here. This is also some vintage crochet here. And then look at this beautiful Rochester, New York postcard. Look at those gorgeous cherry blossoms, or sorry, magnolias. Isn't that lovely? And that's from 1935. And then this here is a plate from I want to say the 1920s. And it's just a beautiful plate here. And again, you can journal on the back, but it's just a really well done plate that the publisher made that. There is from a 1930s children's book. The first balloon ride. And then in here is a fun little page. Look at this. Look at these beautiful costumes from this book. Look at that. Gorgeous. And that is from a movie magazine. You can see the director there and the costumes that they wore. Now this here is from an early 1900s children's book called Smiles and Chuckles. Smiles and Dimples. And that is the Roses page. She is so pretty. Isn't she lovely? And then this is one of the original pages of this this book, Chatterbox, 1893. Look at that stunning plate there. And it was so brittle, I had to add some paper to the back, antique paper, to keep it from crumbling. Children's book page here, the pancake that got away. It's a story I see come up a lot in children's books. This is a fantastic vintage nature book. And look at the illustrations here. They're really quite exquisite. I like how they did the circle and inlaid it on here. And then a free image here. It's just really, really pretty. I don't often see things this beautiful from the 70s. And then let's see, here is just another vintage plate that you can draw on the back of, vintage music sheet. And look at this little sweetie. This is from the 1940s on how to care for children. Fun little historic piece there, how they did things 80 years ago. And this is really cool. I got this from a vintage lot of sewing pieces, and that was beautiful black seam binding, but I just love the graphics of it. It was on a roll. This is a vintage embroidery pattern. And then here I have another one of these Pilot's flight logs from 1959. And then here is one of my vintage library plates. And another storybook page here. Look at the old phone table. Remember those? The chair and the phone by the front door. These are two vintage playing cards. One, the little kitties, and a flinch card, number 6. I can change that out. A Peaceful Day, 1913. And then this is one of my favorite pieces. Look at this. Look at this advertisement, the original coffee substitute. And then over here are these wonderful advertisements, just wonderful. This is from 1905, Hobby Camp. Oh, just really, you really have a lot of fun looking through. It's just like looking back in history. It's, you know, it wasn't 120 years ago. No, it's nothing. Another vintage page here that you can collage with, do lots of fun things with. And then this here, you might remember, is a vintage must be handled with care glass for shipping, a shipping label. I added antique paper on the back. That fell out of a book that I had got, an antique book. Somebody was using it as a bookmark. Ballads of Poems from the 1800s. There we go. And then this here is a vintage book, really sweet. And this is a book from the 1800s. That's leather. The book had long fallen apart, but I love that gorgeous eggplant paper there. This is the first pages of the book, and I turned it into a little pocket and put in this very old, probably more than 70 years old bingo card. Isn't that great? It's not often I see one like this. It's really, really beautiful. I love bingo cards. If you know me, you know I love bingo cards. 1937 piece down here, and another beautiful antique postcard here. And this is on top of an antique postcard album page, so you can tuck your own in here. Just be really careful if you own this to hold it here and bend it gently when you pull it out. Another vintage postcard on that side. Another little children's book page here. And then I just really like this because it's from the late 1800s, an arithmetic book page, a tag I made for journaling on with antique paper. Whoopee. And then one of these fantastic milk carton tabs that you would have put in to let the milkman know what you want delivered the next day. And sometimes he would leave you a note to let you know what you're running low on. And just a really fun vintage page there, and a crossword puzzle that somebody did. I love the colors of this 1940s book page here from the children's book. Another antique postcard here. I just really put a lot of postcards in here. And this is a really fun vintage Trees of America book. Look at those trees, can only be found way down there. Isn't that cool? In California. And here is a book cover that didn't make it, so I turned it into a journaling tag with really cool antique papers on the front. And this is a souvenir book page from the 50s, I believe. And there's Queen Elizabeth and the King, now the King. Vintage botanical book page, a little teeny journaling book here. And that is tucked into a pocket that I made at the spine of an antique book, the Book of the Inn. And then I turn that into a pocket as well and put in a 1951 diary page. And that is from 1915. This here is just a beautiful early 1900s page. And look at this gorgeous page from 1930. And that is dandelions showing plant flowers and seed heads. It is stunning. I just love that. And there is another chatterbox from another different chatterbox book. Isn't she sweet? And she's washing her doll there. That was from the early 1900s, that one. And then this is another great plate from early 1900s. Look at that Victorian dressware. Oh, just stunning, stunning page. And dandelions here. Oh, and dandelions there too. Isn't that neat? I didn't do that on purpose. That's just really cool. And just some vintage blank pages here. I love the stamp on there from Guatemala. And then we have more of the Queen, vintage sewing patterns. This is a Fun with Dick and Jane page. Love it. Oh, look, said Dick, his father. Oh, my father looks funny. Oh, I love Dick and Jane. I have very few left. And then this is just a great 1920s page, a little kitchen experimentation there. And this is a flower, and I'll explain this again. It was in my last video. This page here when I opened the book, this flower was folded into this page, and you can see the outline of it. So when I peeled off the flower, it left this beautiful outline. So I put it back so they could be together forever. But that's the flower, probably over 100 years old. I think that's pretty cool. This is a plate from a vintage book here, a little storybook. And this is from the Vintage Birds of America book. Oopsie, upside down. Here we go. And then this is from a 1940s or 50s. It's probably dated up here. 1940, April 1940, Theater Arts Magazine. And this is a hand-typed research page here from the early 1900s. More Fun with Dick and Jane here. Vintage sewing. This came from this book, this gorgeous 1893 plate with this beautiful robin here. And this came from this book, the music book, this book. And it's of this famous musician here, Pauline Luca. This is one of my antique bootstrap pieces. So that would have been to replace laces, just hooked through the holes of the boots to hold them together. And I think that's really cool. You can do lots of fun things with that. And then I made this little clipboard here out of an 1800s book cover. You can see the leather is still on there. It's a little damaged, so I couldn't use it as a journal. And I love the German marbling there. And a crochet pocket. So I hope you love it as much as I loved making it. You can find this and my other journals at hyperstamper.etsy.com. I do use courier service, so it'll get to you safe and sound and quickly, and no tariffs. So come back soon. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.